Limitism is the world's newest ideology, and it can very well change the course of human history if it ever becomes mainstream, or if knowledge of it ever becomes mainstream. But before we dive into the 13 tenets of limitism, I just want you to know that this ideology is based upon the founding principle of looking out for the people and making their lives better. It is supposed to be a ray of hope in our modern world where it just seems like everything is slowly getting worse and worse and worse. It is an ideology where the leadership will actually listen to the people when they cry out for help and will actually try to fix their problems. It is an ideology that puts the people it rules over first over profit. And it is an ideology that wants to care for and help build up the next generation. Cool? Cool. Now let's dive in to the 13 tenets of limitism.
Tenet 1. No companies may hold a monopoly over two markets. It is the responsibility of the government to find and break up monopolies aggressively, no matter how much lobbying companies like Google do to get out of being broken up. This tenet is meant to stop companies like Meta, Amazon, and Google from being monopolies like they currently are, and in the case of Google's parent company, Alphabet, having a monopoly over two markets, that being the long-form video content market and the web search market.
Tenet
2. All individuals, companies, or organizations residing or visiting our country may only own a set amount of land and houses. This tenet is designed to prevent companies like BlackRock and billionaires from accumulating all of the land and all of the houses on the market. For example, let's say the government said you could only have 5,000 acres and 10 houses. But let's say Elon Musk had 6,000 acres and 20 houses. Well, the government would seize the excess amount. They would seize the extra 10 houses Elon has in the extra 1,000 acres, but they wouldn't seize anything else. They would only seize the excess amount.
Tenet 3.
Major education reform is needed in the next 5 to 10 years to improve society for the better. First off, the No Child Left Behind Act is going to be repealed. There will be optional homework to improve students' learning and increase teachers' workload. This means no more mandatory homework, ever. And parents that don't care about their child will be forced to actually care about raising their child by being blacklisted from every single school in the city they reside in if their child gets held back 2 or 3 times. As an example, it doesn't have to be 2 or 3 times, it could be 5 times. But if your child gets held repeatedly back, the school will step in and force you to actually raise your child somewhat and help them learn. And the entire school system will be reformed into an entirely new system. Under this new system, freshmen will learn the basics of math, science, and other subjects like they do now in high school, while juniors, seniors, and sophomores will take classes that actually help them in life and classes actually related to what they want to do in life. For some examples on classes that will actually help students in life, they would take a survival class where students learn survival skills like how to filter water, how to make a fire, and how to know what plants to eat and not to eat if they're lost in the forest. Tax class where students will learn how to actually do their taxes and how to fill out a W-40. And home fixing class where students will learn how to fix stuff like doors, holes in the walls, stuck pipes, broken steps, and other stuff. And for an example, on classes that actually relate to what students want to do in life, let me give you an example. A sophomore girl who's doing cheerleading would take a class on angles of math so she can use that to better improve her cheerleading skills. And all of this will be rolled out in about 5 to 10 years to give schools time to adjust. So it's not going to happen overnight. It is going to take some time, but it's also not going to be pushed back to like 20 or 100 years from now. And if you're wondering how all this will be funded, keep watching and I'll tell you where all the money is coming from.
Tenet 4.
Those person or persons that have a net worth, have stocks, or any other thing or things that is worth over or around $1 billion shall be treated as a threat to public health and safety. This is because extremely wealthy people have immense unchecked power due to their immense wealth. And they will be put under constant surveillance because they have the power to wipe entire countries off the map and destabilize entire regions. Also, every opportunity will be made to diminish their wealth, so their power is also diminished. Tenet 5. ID, AI, eyeball, and facial scan verification will be stopped and will be made illegal in our country. Now, I know you're wondering why ID verification is so bad, so I'll give you an explanation of how it steals all your personal information. So, let's pretend that the circle is you, that the square is Discord, that this oval is a third-party vendor like Persona, that this pentagon is the government, that this rectangle is a hacker, and that this triangle is a malicious third-party actor who's out to steal all your personal information so they can use it to impersonate you and drain your bank account. Now, once you upload your ID to Discord then sends it to Persona, and Persona hopefully verifies that your age is correct. However, the problem is Persona could send that picture of your ID to the government, or even just straight up sell it to them, or they could sell it to a malicious third-party actor who would use it to drain your bank account and steal all your personal information. Or they could even sell it to anyone, honestly, anyone on the internet. But even if that doesn't happen, Persona can still be hacked by a hacker, and the hacker can sell it to that malicious third-party actor or anyone on the internet. Do you want that to happen to you? Okay, so now you know why ID verification is so bad. But I can hear some of you asking, what about keeping the kids safe online? And to that I say, parents need to be parents and start raising their kids right. You do not need an iPad to raise your child. You should take accountability and raise your child instead of just handing an iPad at them and expecting them to raise themselves. Please stop. And the government needs to encourage parents to actually raise their kids. Heck, if you don't want to have kids, or if you know you're not going to raise them right and are just going to give an iPad to them, there is no shame in just not having kids. In fact, there is no shame in just not having kids at all if you know you're not ready for kids and that you can't raise them. Tenet 6. Regional European-style union must and will be encouraged by the state, federal, and local governments as a way of increasing pay
For workers.
and giving skilled workers like electricians, plumbers, welders, and other skilled workers more benefits. These workers wouldn't target a single company though. They would target an entire industry in a region. Furthermore, people would be required to walk into a union office in order to collect unemployment benefits, so people would be encouraged to join unions. Basically, our country would take tips from Germany and other European countries to improve work and pay for workers in our country. Tenet 7. Support the pro-human AI declaration, which will be linked down in the description by the way, and implement it into law, and government support of the Stargate project immediately. And for those who don't know, the Stargate project is an initiative led by OpenAI and supported by the US government so they can build more AI data centers and shut down and investigate AI data centers as a public safety and health hazard and an environmental hazard due to the pollution they pump out and release into the air. Tenet 8. Cut the defense budget in half and revoke Social Security for everyone over 60 who's doing well off and doesn't need Social Security. How will this be done? Well, using the money procured from the defense budget, we will create the Department of Accountability, otherwise known as the DOA, to investigate who actually needs Social Security and who's just getting extra money they don't need from it. Furthermore, when all is said and done, the DOA will start investigating everyone in the government and everyone in the Epstein files and everyone who has a position of power in the federal government, along with everyone who has a net worth of over or around $1 billion. So the DOA would basically be similar to the FBI and CIA, but more independent of government influence and only focused on investigating the wealthy billionaires and the government. Additionally, if anyone who is investigated is found to have committed any crimes that any average person would have been thrown into jail if they were found guilty of those crimes, they will be thrown into a maximum security federal prison without bail until the DOA gathers enough evidence to convict and sentence them. And importantly, the DOA would be completely separate from government influence and would not be accountable to the federal government, but they would be accountable to a separate board who would hold them accountable by restricting their pay if they were found to be biased in any way, shape, or form. But before they ever started monitoring the DAO, they would be vetted and they would only be allowed to be a member of the board once it was known with 100% certainty that they were unbiased. And each and every member on the board will have to go through extensive background checks. And everyone in the DOA will be a civilian, so no senior government officials. The IRS would also be directed to go after the billionaires and mega corporations instead of the average person, and they would do this by starting to randomly audit billion-dollar companies like Google and Apple to make sure that they actually have paid their taxes in full and that they haven't been misreporting their financials or cooking their books. Editing me here. So I did a little research and I found out about the United States Government Accountability Office, or GAO. So here's what would happen under limitism instead. Instead of creating an entirely new department, the DAO, the money from the Social Security cuts and the defense budget cuts be given to schools so they can transition into an entirely new system of education, like I mentioned in Tenet 3. And some of the money would go to the GAO, and the GAO would be completely separated from the government, so the government can't influence it, and they would be reformed massively so they can be more efficient and they can bring more accountability to the government, but they will also start going after billionaires as well. Tenet 9. No involvement with foreign wars our country has no business being involved in. And instead of sticking our noses into wars our country has no business being involved in, our country should focus on domestic issues and should do stuff like building and improving infrastructure instead. For example, the US shouldn't be a consistent part of Middle Eastern politics and should withdraw from the Iranian war immediately, and also shouldn't have been involved with Iran in the first place. In a nutshell, countries shouldn't stick their noses in other countries' business in an entirely different region of the world unless that country has nukes or is trying to get nukes while being untrustworthy to have nukes in the first place by the international community. And when I said the US should have withdrawn from Iran, I meant that the US should have just removed Iran's capability to get nukes or negotiated with them so they wouldn't make nukes and then left, and we also shouldn't have bombed Iran. Tenet 10. Companies can't own basic necessities like water, natural gas, or electricity. So under limitism, these industries would be nationalized, and these industries would be put in the hands of state and local governments, and taxpayer dollars would also be used to build and improve these necessities while giving these necessities away for free to taxpayers, since stuff like water and especially electricity is essential for survival in the modern world. Tenet 11. No government ballots for any company except those that are necessary for the health and safety of our country. For example, a hospital company would be guaranteed a government ballot because if they go bankrupt and are unable to provide for their patients that would kill people on life support and seriously injure people who need immediate medical attention. However, hospitals would be limited on how much they can raise their prices in order to lower hospital costs for people and to prevent hospitals from squeezing their patients dry for profit if the hospitals once begin to eat a government bailout. Tenet 12. Every single public official must make publicly available a list of people, companies, or organizations who have donated over $1 million to their campaign to be elected or re-elected to the office they now hold before they can hold that office. And if a public official is found to have taken a large amount of money to vote favorably on issues that any person, company, or organization wants them to, then they will be labeled as that person's, company's, or organization's mouthpiece. For example, if a senator was found to have taken $5 million during their campaign to be elected during any time they were waiting to become a senator, or after they became a senator, and that money was used to encourage or persuade them to vote against a bill that would regulate Meta, then that senator would be labeled as Meta's mouthpiece with the nameplate, and they will only be seen as Meta's mouthpiece and nothing else. Tenet 13. Companies cannot sell or give any user data they have to any person, organization, government, or company, or take content creators' content from them without permission. This is because stealing content creators' content from them counts as theft, and any company that tries to take content creators' content from them without permission will be charged with theft. And selling user data represents a public safety hazard, as that data could be used to severely harm the public if a malicious person, organization, government, or company gets a hold of it. And finally, 3 additional tenets. Tenet 14. Any government official over the age of 80 cannot be re-elected to office due to concerns about their mental and physical capacity while in office. This would also better improve generational representation in government.
Tenet 15. Companies like Roundup cannot lobby for laws that infringe on a citizen's right to sue, and governments cannot ever infringe or ban the right of any citizen to any company they wish, and the government cannot rely on any studies that have any influence from the company that is looking to be approved for sale in our country, and they must independently test products from companies that are looking to be approved for sale in our country.
Tenet 16. Companies cannot create lobbying groups. Their CEO must represent them in court or Congress, and if a company does anything illegal, then their shareholders and CEO will go to jail, and nonprofits cannot lobby issues through political NGOs. So I just wanted to give an overview of limitism and the core tenets of it in this video and not really dive deep into it, because limitism definitely needs to be ironed out and all the unforeseen flaws definitely need to be aired out, as it's just me who is part of this ideology right now. Also, my editing app kinda sucks, so I didn't want this 70 to 20 minute video to turn into a 3-hour long video, as my editing app can't handle, by the way. But I am open to going on podcasts and giving speeches and whatnot, talking about limitism and diving really deep into it. Just let me know ahead of time and DM me either on TikTok or Instagram. Subscribe for more videos like this one, and let me know down in the comments if you guys want me to start a series talking about each tenet of limitism in detail.